Yeah. And then people can comment by, like they can comment by typing. And so then, so a couple times people have asked for like prayers or something. So I can't take back, but they can hear everything that's happening. Where's everybody? Josh is getting through.
So, when they set up on the day before, the 24th,
Yeah,
can you store stuff in the refrigerator?
I think probably I think we can, yeah.
It'll come back to me with everything that Jimmy is so excited.
Yeah.
And I just lost it.
Everybody got the word out that kind of spread. You fill up the seats.
Okay, now we can start.
There's Josh.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
There it is. There it is. Hey, it's raucous. There you go. Welcome to the United Church of Christ in Warminster. We are an open and affirming community of faith. For those of you following us, I just forgot the name because my brain's not working today.
Periscope.
Periscope. Hi, Periscope people. Welcome. My name is Josh Blakesley. I'm the pastor of UCCW Warminster. We're so glad that you're following us on Periscope. And for those of you who are present with us physically today, we're glad that you've chosen to spend this second Sunday of Advent with us. We're about ready to light 2 candles today, 2 purple candles, just to remind ourselves why the color purple. Now, it's a great movie, but beyond that, why do we use the color purple during the season?
Good morning, Betty.
Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody?
Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller, close. Incorrect. Royalty, right. Royalty is one reason, right. And purple or blue, as you see as well there, is part of our season of what we call Advent, because we're anticipating something that is coming to us. So today, we're going to light first the candle of hope, which we lit last week. And then this week, today, we light the candle of peace. Now, in English, the word really should be wholeness. So today, I invite you to do something different. I know, different. You're like, oh, great, here we go again. Last week, I mentioned that I wanted you to think about hope as being imagination. So today, I want you to consider that we light the candle of imagination and now the candle of wholeness and what that might mean for you. So I invite you, friends, as we begin our worship today, to enter through those 2 doors of imagination, of imagining for you what it would be like to be whole. And as we begin to sing Awake My Soul, this is a great way for us to sort of center ourselves as we prepare for worship. So as we sing our song, we'll light candles.
Breath of God, breathe on me.
candle of wholeness today. And when we gather as a community, we share the wholeness of Christ with each other. That is an important thing to do because we need to reconnect with each other to remind ourselves that we're all on different journeys right now. We all are. And this is where God meets us, wherever we are on our journey. So I invite you, let's share the wholeness of Christ with each other. May the peace of Christ be with you.
And also with you.
Share that wholeness with one another.
Peace. Peace, Ian. Peace. Peace. Peace, Juliet. Peace, Corey. Oh, you're all kinds of colors, huh?
Yeah.
I was going to shake your hand.
Hey guys.
I got marker on.
I see. Yeah, looks like you had a good time. Peace.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Say peace.
Peace.
Your hands are full. Peace be with
Always.
you.
I'll do shake.
Peace be with you. Peace, George. Peace, George.
I did say my greetings, Peter.
Spirit of gentleness, go through the wilderness, calling and free. Spirit of restlessness, journey from blessedness, wind on the sea.
messenger on ahead to clear the way for me. Suddenly, out of the blue, the leader you've been looking for will enter his temple. Yes, the messenger of the covenant, the one you've been waiting for.
Look, he's on his way.
A message from the mouth of God.
But who will be able to stand up to that coming?
Who can
Survive his appearance.
Who'll be like white-hot fire from the smelter's furnace. Who'll be like the strongest lye soap at the laundry. He'll take his place as a refiner of silver, as a cleanser of dirty clothes.
Bring your full contribution to the temple, so there will be ample provisions in my temple.
Test me in this and see if I don't open up heaven itself to you.
And pour out blessings beyond your wildest dreams.
So during Advent and Christmas season, we read prophets. And we typically, in the Christian tradition, don't read prophets all that much. But for some reason, when it comes to Advent and then Christmas Eve and the season of Epiphany as well, we dig into the prophets of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Scriptures a lot more. Now, as I said last week, it's very, very important that we recognize the context for these Old Testament passages. And the story and the birth of Jesus come from a different audience than those who wrote these prophetic books. Specifically, it's a must for us to know that the Hebrew prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, and then today we look at Malachi, we're not actually talking about Jesus of Nazareth, the man we know from the 1st or 2nd century. Nor were they writing to a Christian audience. The word Christian, of course, did not exist when these prophetic writings did. These writings are much more ancient, of course, than the New Testament Gospels. And Jesus, of course, wasn't on anyone's radar screen at that moment. But in all fairness to the casual Bible reader, those who put the Bible together didn't actually do us any favors. Here's the deal. The order of the Old Testament books is set in such a way so as to point the Christian reader, i.e. us, to the aha and foreshadowing moments that seem to draw connections for us between those Old Testament prophets and the New Testament stories of Jesus. So Malachi is one example. In the Christian Bible, Malachi is listed as the last Old Testament prophet, and that is not at all the case in the Jewish canon of the Bible. The Christians who put together the order of the Bibles wanted Malachi to appear last, so we could all draw connections between the prophecy and then the birth of Jesus in Matthew and in Luke. But I think our responsibility is to try as best as we can to read the Old Testament through a Jewish lens. After all, it is Jewish scripture. Being careful not to jump too quickly to Jesus, at least not yet. Why is that? First, because, of course, it's more honest, right? And truer to the actual text. But second, because by doing so, we can glean even more meaning, I would argue, from these texts and not settle for some cookie-cutter Christmassy conclusion that may limit our understanding of what's being said. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox. Okay, what about Malachi? What's Malachi? Who's Malachi? And if it's not about Jesus, why should we care? All right. Well, Malachi is not really a name, first of all. The actual Hebrew words that appear in verse 3 of this prophetic book are "my messenger," which is Malachi. So it's not a name. It's actually "my messenger." That's the title of the book. It's a book about the corruption of religion and the need for change. You see, the priests at this time in the Israelite temple of Jerusalem, in other words, the rebuilt one, because remember the temple was destroyed and rebuilt, second time, right? They're apathetic, says Malachi. There's corruption all over the temple system, and many scholars think that this was happening around 450 BCE, so 450 years before the birth of Jesus. Now, Malachi's audience, if that date is correct, is pre-Babylonian exile. In other words, before the Israelites were exiled in Babylon. And it's also right before they built the Jerusalem temple for the second time. So basically these people had just enough time to get a little apathetic, right? And a little lax in their treatment of people and their worship of what is called Adonai. It is not actually the word God or Yahweh even in this case. In Malachi it is the word Adonai. Yes, they had this big temple, they had their religious rituals, but as people, according to Malachi, they weren't all that impressive actually. So Adonai, also called the Lord of Hosts, says, who can stand? Who can stand when this Adonai appears? Because Adonai will be like a refiner's fire, a harsh soap. When do you ever get God compared to soap? Pretty cool, huh, right? Kind of reminds me of Ralphie in A Christmas Story, you know, when he's in the scene, he puts the soap in his mouth and he says something bad. It's really like that. It's a harsh soap. I mean, it sounds funny, but it's true. That image just came right to me. Adonai will help the people be the best people they can be. On the inside, which is their worship. But that is not enough. The refining fire and the harsh soap are to remind people of what is important. Are they talking about people behind their backs? Are they ignoring the oppressed workers? Are they looking away from the widows, from the orphans, from the refugees? Because for Malachi, it's not enough for the priests and the people to be good religious people, doing the right kinds of rituals in the right kind of way. Worship of Adonai must be paired with good behavior in the world. How the Israelite people treat other people is more important. Otherwise, their worship is actually false. Malachi is, as Professor John Holbert states, more than a mere warm-up for the main stage appearance of Jesus. Malachi is a truth teller, not a predictor. And all of us, including me, we would all benefit from hearing this message. What would it be like if instead of focusing on just the birth of a little baby boy, we actually focused on how we treat people in our community? What if instead we focused on the refugees all around the world and in our own communities? The lonely, the forgotten, the marginalized, the oppressed. What if our worship was about being kind and compassionate to others? You see, Adonai, the one who comes as a refining fire and cleansing soap, comes into our lives to help us realize our full potential as people. We are not limited to rituals or even to religious practice itself, thinking that only these things please God. Instead, we are refined in order to understand that we are so very capable of healing and of caring and of having empathy and of giving. This is the tithe that is acceptable to God, borrowing from another prophet, Isaiah. The tithe is this, to give of ourselves to the world. It's not about money in this case. The tithe is our own humanity, who we are. Sometimes we forget that our own humanity is such a gift to others if we simply share it with them. When we give someone our time without distractions. When we perform an act of kindness without expecting anything in return. When we share an honest but difficult feeling we have with someone because we trust her. When we listen intently and compassionately to someone going through an incredibly difficult time. Consider this. What if God really cared most about how much we truly give of ourselves? What if we focus more on that and less on all the other stuff? How would that change things for us as people?
So those are some really great thoughts about new thoughts of what it might mean for us to give this Christmas away. This next song is called Just That. And wow, thank you, Josh. Some really good thoughts about what it can look like different than you might have thought. Give this Christmas away.
What if I told you it's right there in your hand?
I have the kids up front?
You made it. Oh, Ian, are you coming? No. All right, Ian's going to be shy today. So, today is the second Sunday in the season of the church that we call Advent. And Advent is the time we are all getting ready for Christmas. So, who remembers what last week's candle was? Last week's candle was hope. And who knows what this week's candle is? Anybody? Anybody? Peace, exactly. Now, every Advent, when it's our day for peace, I ask the people here the same exact question. I don't expect you to remember that, but I remember. I wonder how many languages we can say peace in, or we can learn to say peace in, from the people who are here. So, we know how to say it in English. Oh, whoa, whoa.
Straight up knowledge.
Shalom, what language is that?
Hebrew.
Hebrew. Okay, now we have two. Peace, English, shalom, Hebrew.
Salam.
Say again.
Salam.
Salam. The language is
It's Arabic.
Arabic. Exactly, we've got three. Peace, shalom, paz. Anybody know what language paz is?
Spanish.
Spanish, sure, we've got four.
We heard the Latin one a lot last night. And how was that?
Pox.
Pox.
Like chicken pox.
Thank you. God.
Mhm.
It's
I think at 5 we might be at a record.
What about, you may speak any German? No?
Any German? What about French? Okay, Siri. Oh, you could ask Siri. Ask Siri. I don't know. This is the first time we've had a Siri volunteer from the congregation. Let's see what
I don't know how to say it. It's P-A-I-X.
P-A, is that French?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm out.
Peach.
Peach?
Peach.
Peach. We'll say peach.
No.
Okay, that's 6.
No, it would be,
No, Joe's gonna fix
Yeah.
this.
the X would be silent.
The X would be silent. Pa. So pay.
Okay.
Pay. All right. We'll look it up. We'll Google. Caroline, I'm going to ask you to advance the slide. We're going to hear our gospel.
In the 15th year of the reign of Emperor Tiberius, when Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea, and Herod was ruler of Galilee, and his brother Philip ruler of the region of Iturea and Trachonitis, and however they are, Lysanias ruler of Abilene, during the high priesthood of Annas and Caiaphas, the word of God came to John, son of Zechariah, in the wilderness. He went into all the region around the Jordan, proclaiming a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins, as it is written in the book of the words of the prophet Isaiah. The voice of one crying out in the wilderness, "Prepare the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. Every valley shall be filled, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough ways made smooth, and all flesh shall see the salvation of God."
So I have one more language that we can say peace in. And I do this every Advent when we have the candle piece, so I want you to take it, see if you remember. Anybody remember what language it is? Do you remember? I heard it from American Sign Language, that's right. So here's how you say peace in sign language. First, bring your hands together like you're really, really worried. Does that feel like peace? It doesn't, that part didn't feel like peace to me. Does it feel like peace to you? No, so interesting. So there's a second part. So first, you put your hands together like you're really, really worried. And then you go. But now, we're going to add another part. And this isn't part of the sign language sign. This is part of the Bible sign. As John said before, peace, we can use another English word and say wholeness. And
when we say wholeness, we can mean peace between ourselves and other people. So I'm going to ask us all to scooch together, because we're going to do the sign for peace, and then we're going to end it by holding each other's hands while we say a prayer. Are you ready? God, thank you so much for today and bringing us together, and help us to learn about peace, and more especially to be peacemakers and to share peace with the world. In your name we pray. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Another sign for peace, that's right. That's the Vulcan sign. We forgot about the Vulcan sign.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, next year.
How did we miss that?
It'll roll around again.
I think it's a striking image of the sign language for peace, because like Mari was saying, it's almost like struggle, isn't it, in the beginning? And I think for me, I don't know for you, but for me personally, that's always meant something, because for me, having wholeness or peace within myself is also about recognizing the struggle within me. And so for me to recognize peace as a person, sometimes I obviously have to recognize that struggle. So I love that transition of that struggle into peace. This is a familiar hymn we're going to sing next. It's a Christmas carol that I'm sure a lot of you have sung before. Maybe you hear it in the shopping mall right now. But I'd like for you to do something. Just kind of look at the words and think about those two things that Mari brought up with the children today. Think about how peace and wholeness can come even from struggle. And think about the story of Jesus being born and how that peace child entered into not such a perfect world, and how that peace child continues to enter into a not so perfect world. So I told you that our Bibles are set up in such a way that the prophets of the Old Testament are often in our Christian canon, as we call it, which is just the order of how they put the books. That our Old Testament prophets are set up in such a way to point us to the New Testament Gospels. So that being said, Luke's Gospel, which we read a lot during this time of Advent and Christmas. Why is that? Because Luke has a lot about the birth of Jesus in it. In fact, if you take away Matthew and Luke, we're kind of looking at nothing. We got nothing, right? You got John, who's like up in the air in some like weird like plane where he's like, the Word was God, and the Logos was flesh, and the flesh was with God. You're like, what's happening, John? Right? It's like this weird trip, right? But Matthew and Luke, no, different story. Matthew and Luke are directly connecting the words of the prophets to the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. So Luke has a lot of good stuff in it, and I encourage you during this season, it's actually really, really short. It's like 3 chapters. I mean, it just will go by like that. But check it out, and if you have the chance, go to places like BibleGateway.com. There's a great site called TextWeek.com that gives you a bunch of resources and very short, nice, concise interpretations of some of these passages that contain stories we think we know so well. The thing is about Luke's gospel that makes it unique is that Luke goes into great detail about another birth that we don't really think too much about, but this is so important in the story. Even more important at this point in the story than the birth of Jesus. Yes, I said that. The birth of John the Baptizer, or as we say sometimes, John the Baptist. Because if you know this passage that we read the end of it, you've heard before, that Martin Luther King used it in speeches, you heard it in Handel's Messiah, right? The valleys and all the mountains and all that wonderful imagery there. This, of course, comes from the Old Testament prophecy. And Luke took that prophecy and tweaked it just a little bit to make it talk about John the Baptizer, not, in fact, Jesus. So remember that John's the one who comes before Jesus. But there's also somebody who comes before John in the story. Another priest, Zechariah. So here's this guy, Zechariah, who's a priest and resembles the priest of the temple story in the prophecy of Malachi. But in this case, we have a good priest, a guy who's doing what he's supposed to do. He's caring for the oppressed and the poor. He's paying attention to Adonai. And then consider John, the crazy guy who liked locusts dipped in honey, which maybe isn't that bad. I don't know, I've never tried it. I don't want to knock him if I try it. So here's this John, he's telling people to be purified. Sound familiar? He speaks of fire. Sound familiar? He speaks of water. So for John, it's not just that there's a refining fire. He doesn't mention soap, although you could sort of equate water and taking a bath with soap, I suppose. But he talks more about fire and water together. But John's always telling everyone who comes to him at the River Jordan that someone else is coming just after him to do just the very thing that Malachi says, which is to refine. Okay, I get it. By this point, you should have made those connections, right, between Malachi and Luke. And there's nothing wrong with those connections. I'm not saying today that those connections are totally wrong. But I'm asking simply for us to do this, to let each book of the Bible, whether it's Old Testament or New Testament, stand on its own so that we may embrace their meaning as they are first. So in the case of Luke, we're talking about cleansing and purifying for sure, but it's indeed called baptism, which is totally different. However, on the other hand, Jews baptize. Aha! You didn't know, maybe some of you that, right? Jews baptize. Jewish baptism was commonplace. And so all of Luke's 1st and 2nd century readers would have understood what John was talking about with the symbol of water and fire. But baptism for them was more than just a ritual to be cleansed from sin. Baptism was an internal transformation decision within a person, and a display of that transformation in the form of changed behavior. Literally, for the Jewish culture, baptism was an unbinding of a person. I want you to recall the story of Lazarus when he comes out. Same language we get. The unbinding of Lazarus. The unbinding of those who Jesus healed. Baptism for the Jews was about unbinding of people. The freedom for them to become the fullest expression of who they were. I call this wholeness. I call this wholeness. Because wholeness to me is when we are truly ourselves. when we fully express our humanity without convention or worry or external influence. And the one thing that helps me to daily consider that and to pursue wholeness within myself is to consider every day my activities and my choices and where those choices come from. I ask a very simple question of myself that I challenge you to ask yourselves. Will this particular choice in this very moment that I'm making, will this particular choice bring me to greater wholeness? Will it bring me to coherency? Will it bring me to harmony with others and with nature around me? Or will it take me farther away from that wholeness? Will this particular choice lead me on a path to wholeness, or will it lead me away from wholeness? Because we make choices every single day. You get up and maybe, I don't even know if you eat breakfast, but if you don't, you just chose not to eat breakfast. That's a choice, right? I got up today and I was like, what do I have in the refrigerator? I have pineapple, some raspberries, some kefir yogurt, and some spinach. So I put it in the blender and I ate it. It actually was pretty good. I have a lot of energy because of that, probably, I don't know. Maybe it's the coffee too, which I chose to do with the French press. Those are choices I made, right? Now, you may think, well, those are kind of weird, whatever, they're not really important. Yeah, every choice. And I'm asking you to simply consider, open yourselves to consider, what if you thought about that, about your choices, whether those choices led you to wholeness, or whether they led you away from wholeness. Christmas, it's on its way. You know, it comes without warning, right? It comes quicker than we probably want it to. And gifts are on everybody's mind. I get it. So here's a take-home activity for you to consider. I want you to think about just 3. I know it's back to the whole magic thing, right? But just 3 gifts. 3 gifts. Gift number 1. What is the gift that you would like to give yourself? Now that's not an easy question to answer, so I want you to really just kind of let that sit for a minute. What is the gift right now in your life, this present moment, that you would just like to give yourself? Maybe for some of you who are just like crazy, you would like to give the gift of a few moments of peace and quiet. Maybe that's the gift you like to give yourself. Maybe for some of you it's the opposite. You're like, I just want to be with people and be like, whoop, whoop, you know, it's holidays, have fun. So maybe it's that. Maybe the gift of laughter is what you want to give yourself, because it's been kind of a serious time for you going through a moment. Maybe the gift of renewed friendship with somebody you really miss, want to be with. What is the gift you want to give to yourself? Gift number 2. What would you like to give to someone you care about? Just one person. Start small. Think of one person in your life. Doesn't even have to be a family member, doesn't have to be a best friend, just one person who you know. Someone you would like to give a gift to. And you know how this works. It can be the simplest thing in the world. The simplest thing. I've seen this, not just during Advent season, of course, and you have too, but I've seen this reflected in how people treat each other in public places. So I've been doing all these shows at Peddler's Village. A couple of you have been already. Some of you are coming this coming weekend. And I don't know if you've ever been to Peddler's Village during this time of year, but it's a hot mess. Lori, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. It's really amazing. It's like, I've never seen so many people in that tiny little village, Lahaska or whatever. It's crazy. Like, so last night, you're going to park, and it takes like almost an hour just to park. So I parked on a tree. I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't even care anymore. I just make my own space. But like this hill, it's not even a parking lot. I just go over the hill, and I'm in the forest, and I park there. Because, what are they going to do? At least I'm not double parked, right? Some people are like triple parking. So that leads me to my point is, like, oftentimes, during this really like crazy, sort of intense season of the holidays, you really see people's behavior. I was walking by this couple last night as I was trying to get to the show, and the guy, they were with a little kid, it was his mom, dad, and kid, and the guy was just like disinterested. He was just like not happy to be there, and he kept complaining. He's like, why are we here? I mean, the lights and the trees, and the kid is sitting in the stroller, and the kid's just doing this, oh, You know, like, just like the lights, it's psychedelic, you know, and then there's like some carolers over there, and the kid's like, what's that? And then there's like another kid whipping by, you know, and then the mother is just trying to get the dad to like stop talking and just be, you know, whatever. And that's a microcosm of the world that I see on Fridays and Saturdays at Heather's. And it leads me to say, sometimes people need the simplest gift from you. I went to Saxby's Coffee, and there, you know, it's like 3 or 4 teenagers that work there, right? And they're treated like junk most of the time. There's a line out the door. People are angry. They're frustrated. I can't believe it takes so long to get an espresso. I'm like, well, there's a Starbucks down the street if you want to go there. I mean, whatever. There's like 3 people working here, so. And the line's literally like sprawled outside. So I'm thinking the 80 people standing in line for a Saxby's Coffee probably don't have a lot better to do, probably, but they're angry. They're angry. And I see how some of them treat the students who are working there, who are, by the way, doing a really good job. And then I see people who treat them well, and how much of a change that makes, and how that gets those students through the next hour of that night. And you know that, anybody who works in retail this time of year. Anyone who offers you a kind word, a smile, some patience, some understanding, it goes a long way. It goes a long way. So what is the gift that you would like to give to someone? Right? And the last question could be phrased in a couple ways, but I chose this way. What would you like to give? What is the gift you would like to give to the world? Now, it may seem too big, so I don't want you to make this too general. But really what that question is about is this. What is the gift you'd like to give to a stranger? To somebody in your community, in the world, someone who's not part of your social network, somebody who's not your friend, your family member. What's the gift you'd like to give to that stranger, to that person in this world? Notice there's a sequence to this. The first gift is you must give that gift to yourself. That's wholeness. And from that wholeness comes the generosity and the empathy and the wisdom to know what people around you need. People you know and you love. And in the third gift comes after that. It is a process. And so don't hurry. If that first one, that first gift takes you time, embrace it. Don't rush it. What is the gift you'd like to give yourself? What is the gift you'd like to give to somebody you care about? What is the gift you'd like to give the world? Consider these 3 gifts, and may they lead you to wholeness. Amen. When we pray together, it is a step towards wholeness, at least it can be, if we look at prayer in the way that the scriptures do, which is that God is not waiting for you to come, so you can, basically say, I'm a terrible person, and I know you're judging me, God, so please just forgive me. Maybe sometimes we do that because we need that for ourselves, but actually that's not what God's waiting for us to do. In all of the scripture references to prayer, whether in the Old Testament or the New Testament, God is simply waiting with bated breath for us to come and pray. And it doesn't matter about what. To just come as we are. In fact, it's always ridiculed, right? Those prayers by the priests and those who are in the public places doing these kind of prayers. I don't know why I use that voice, that's weird. Anyway, but those very pompous prayers, that's what's ridiculed in Scripture. But the prayer of the person who goes into his room, shuts the door, and is sad or anxious or angry, those are the prayers that matter, or grateful. Those are the prayers that matter. So when we gather as a community to pray, you bring that as individuals, right? You bring those prayers here, and we embrace those prayers together. This is a safe place to do that. That way when we leave this place and we go to our lives this week, we find paths to wholeness because we know that others are with us in our struggles, in our celebrations. So what would you like to share this time? All the way back.
First, we have a wonderful time at your school. We're going to this new school called Pathway, and I just really had a good time.
Prayers of gratefulness that Jimmy has found a new school called Pathway, and that prayers also of wisdom and strength for you, Jimmy, that would be a good experience for you. Absolutely. Yeah.
A little follow-up on that. It was a really rough week because this first school we saw earlier this week was just not a good experience for all of us. And it was, you talk about finding peace and wholeness, and I had no peace at all up until we saw Pathways. And we left Pathway, sorry. Mari had to correct me. Mari used to work there, Pathway, because when we left Pathway School, there was just this peace that surrounded all of us. And it was God. You know, we are 99% sure. When there, we're waiting for one final yes from one person, but you know, I have to trust in that 1%. Also, last night, being at the Vespers service with Kimberly sang it up at the Moravian Church. I've shared this with a few people, but they talked about basically, and they say it every year, but I always forget. That's only the second year we've gone, but I always forget. Be still, let go, and find peace in this season. And on that note, just prayers for Kimberly, because she came through some academic struggles a little bit, and she did go for academic counseling. She's getting some help, but she felt very her self-esteem went downhill, but she's never struggled academically. And we said it's okay. That's what they're there for. That's what we're paying for those academic counselors.
Prayers for Kimberly and all the students who are in that intense mode right now, getting close to finals. I know the feeling of that. Prayers of gratefulness that yes, I think you found the right place for you. Yeah, Liz.
Praise for our new home. Prayers that we can get a kitchen sink soon. And prayers that things go through with the insurance, because Brett had a car accident. It's okay. He had a car accident this past week, and now we're worried we're not going to be able to have another car for a while.
Prayers for Brett, Liz, and Corey. They just moved to a new place. And prayers everything goes well with that, and that they'll throw it in the kitchen sink eventually. And prayers for Brett. Anytime you're in an accident, it's still traumatic. So prayers of recovery for him too. Yes.
Prayers for my bride Donna. On the 14th, she hopefully will have her last meeting with the ordination board. That remains to be seen. And something has come up about a church in Philadelphia. And they, whoever they are talking about that discussion will happen probably but the prayers are for Donna. They call in, talk to the Lord, and make whatever the appropriate decision is. Thank you.
Prayers of wisdom and patience, having gone through that process in both Presbyterian Church and the UCC. It tries your patience, but in the end, I will not say it's worth it, but I will say that it's character building, and it will be for you, amongst them. Yeah.
I guess as a reflection of what you guys were talking about with holiness today, actually the Rich's class with the adult class today touched on holiness through the Beatitudes, which is a really neat way to see it, and how Jesus worked through the Beatitudes to provide a pathway to holiness. And the school that we saw this Friday was a pathway there, because I think, no pun intended, I think that the key personnel there had that in them. It was just evident to see that they were receptive and very caring, encouraging, and caring. So that was good, and we all appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, George.
Prayers for recovery for Bonnie's friend Beth. Prayers for a friend of mine's wife, Terry, who has a major heart problem and need help for her heart. And prayers for Danielle, daughter, is really kind of struggling right now. So prayers for the family, my son, grandchildren.
Prayers for Beth. Prayers for Terry. Prayers for Danielle. I want to say I was able to finally track down Betty Geiger. I know, amazing. She even was surprised because she's really, it's hard to get a hold of her these days. She's not undergoing treatments right now. She's recovering. She sounded much better, actually, and she says she feels much better right now than she has. She hasn't been able to come here yet. We're trying to coerce her to do that. See if maybe we can get her here by Christmas Eve. But she sends her love to you and is grateful for your prayers and support. She wanted to tell you that. Otherwise she'd hit me if I didn't. So, but Betty is back to her spunky self, which is good. So continue prayers for Betty's recovery, and also prayers that we can find a way, to reconnect her to our faith community. Anything else you'd like to share? Well, I'd just like to, again, add, today we have a congregational meeting, which is not like, oh, it's not that bad. It's actually a good moment for us to sort of talk about where we're going as a congregation, and obviously to sort of see where we've been, but more so where we want to go and want to be. So I invite you, for those of you who are able to stay, to do that, and just continue prayers for the congregation as a whole as we make some big and small decisions together, and that we do that together, because that's the most important thing. Let's be in a spirit of prayer. God, we thank you for refining fire when we need it. We thank you even for that bitter, not so good tasting soap when we need it. We thank you for water when we most need it, to be refreshed, renewed, restored, replenished. And we thank you for love, a love that does pass way beyond what we talk about or phrases and words that we use. It's a love that just is, and it is where we are. It is for us who we are. It is you. You are love for us, no matter what we think we are or where we are on our journey. We thank you that you are this love for us. May we be this love for others in our lives. May we be whole people, embracing how you love us, so that we can help others recognize wholeness and know that they are loved. And now, God, we ask you that you would hear names of people in our lives we care about, and even people in our world who are in need of healing, connection. God, hear these names we speak to you now. All this we ask through the great healer. Amen. So today we celebrate communion. And in our tradition, as the United Church of Christ, we have two sacraments. One is indeed the one I talked about earlier, which is baptism. And sometimes we call that dedication as well. But we also have the celebration of the Lord's Supper, or communion. And as I've said, I'll just say it again. For us, the way we understand it is that these symbols point us to something we can't see. So because we look around, do we see God? Or maybe you do in certain people and certain things, but these symbols sort of point us to God. And so the bread and the cup, it's actually, they're crackers. And that's grape juice. It's actually, that's what it is. And yet these symbols do something for us. They remind us that we are filled with God's mercy and love, and that enables us to share that mercy and love with others in the world. This is an open table communion. So regardless of your faith background or tradition, you are welcome to participate in this sacrament with us. We encourage you to do so if you feel moved to. And also, if you have small children, please bring them, because that's the way they learn. They can touch and taste, and hopefully the crackers aren't too bad. And just so you know, in the spirit of Advent and in this season, we are using unleavened gluten-free crackers for this particular time of Advent. So for those of you who need to be aware of that, just wanted to let you know that this morning. So everything has a story, right? There's a story to everything. And communion has a story. And it's a story that we often tell, but I think we need to hear it each time, because it's an important story. And that is that Jesus went to Jerusalem with his friends, the disciples. It was Passover time. For the Jews, that was a huge party, but it was also a big religious holiday and festival. So they shared food, and they shared prayers and wine, and they sat around a table. And they were in this place called the upper room, which, sorry, I'll say it again. The word for upper room in the Gospels in this story is the same word we get for manger, the stable, the place where Jesus was supposedly born. You see how the Gospels are connecting the beginning to the end of the story. So anyway, Jesus was there in this upper room with his friends, and they were sharing a meal as they typically did. But then Jesus did something different. Jesus took bread and he broke that bread. And then he said, "This is my body broken for you. Every time you eat of this, remember me." And in the same way, Jesus took the cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to his friends, and he says, "This is the cup of mercy poured out for the forgiveness of sins. Each time you drink of this cup, remember me." So friends, each time we eat this bread, each time we drink this cup, we proclaim wholeness for ourselves and wholeness for the world. We will celebrate by intinction, which is a big word for saying basically you'll take
No,
a
he's just
cracker
paying attention.
and then you will dip it into the cup when you come forward. So those who are helping with communion, would you join me? Friends, come, all things are ready. So now is our moment when we sort of touch base with each other, kind of say what's going on in the life of our community. So we have quite a bit to tell you. I just want to reiterate some things coming up, and then if I miss anything, I'll call on a lot of you or just interrupt me at any moment. So the first thing is, yes, right after our offering time, we will receive a benediction. And then you're welcome to grab coffee and food, but we're going to try and start the congregational meeting as quickly as we can so that I know people have a place to go today. I want to make sure that people can participate as fully as possible. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of being in this area and grabbing stuff and then coming back, so we'll start the meeting as soon as we can. And again, this is a meeting open to everyone. If you are a member of the congregation, obviously we're going to vote on the 2016 budget, so that will happen today. But all the discussions we have, everyone is welcome to participate in our community of faith. Just a reminder about Christmas Eve. We will be here, 5:30 p.m. will be the children's service of worship. There'll be communion. And I'm pretty excited about the stories. We have two really great stories that we're going to choose from. So I'm really excited. And at 7:30 p.m., we will also have worship here, and that will include communion and story and music. So we invite you to come and participate in that. What else? Christmas Day, we are serving time for the holidays. You want to mention that?
What's happening is we're serving at our old location. The time for serving will now be 3 to 4:30, which is a change. I'm doing well on volunteers for the early part and have nobody for the later part. So if you would be kind enough to check your sign up email. And also where we're really lacking right now in the food is in the meat. So if you have a ham or turkey that you're getting for free or would like to donate, let me know or see the sign up email.
First, ham or turkey needed. The second time is what?
Volunteers from like 3 o'clock on. I'm heavy at the setup. I'm not full for the serving and cleanup.
So anyone who can help with serving and cleanup from 3 p.m. on Christmas Day. And again, we're going to be at 785 West Street Road, the previous building where we used to worship. So that's happening. And then on the 24th, do you have enough for like?
I may have enough, but you know, many hands make light work. So 11 o'clock on the 24th.
There is a blood drive here on December the 21st. So if you would like to come and give blood, the times are not in front of my face. Does anybody have the times anywhere? No. But there is a blood drive here during the day in the afternoon. Other announcements that I missed. Yes.
Vicki Curran left the flyer for BYOB paint and sip party at Uncorked Artists where Connie works. And it is on Wednesday, January 6th. It's $35 per person. So we have provided, please contact Vicki because registration is required. Reservations, I can't talk. And all the proceeds will benefit the Love Thy Neighbor program. So these flyers are over on the table as you walk out, so please take one and go have fun. If you've never been to one of these painting places, there are balls, a lot of fun to do.
I actually think it's the 13th.
Okay, she has Wednesday, January 6th on the flyer, so you want to clear that up with her?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we think it's the 13th. Is that that's the following Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay.
And just Alan reminded me, it is 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. December the 21st here for the blood drive. So if you want to give blood, you can come here on the 21st between 2 and 7 p.m. Update on Manna Main Street. We were scheduled yesterday. We didn't end up serving at Manna. Our next time to serve is in January. So Dean and Pam Roberts will let you know about that in terms of if they need more helpers for that particular day. Are there any other announcements that I missed? Any questions? Yeah.
Today's the last day for collection for Manna on Main and Christ Home for Children. So put the baskets over there on the floor. Thank you for everyone who was able to participate. And if you were not and you want to make a monetary donation, you can get it to the right organization.
So we've done 2 collections, one for Christ Home for Children and also for Manna on Main, and this is the last day to receive collections. However, as Jean was saying, you can also make online contributions. So if you want to do that, you can see Jean. She'd be glad to give you that info. Anything else, Agnes?
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who contributed to the fundraiser that we did for the Heshes. We did a concert this weekend, and I think, I haven't checked the website, but from what I've heard, we were right around 15,000 to them. So thank you. That's just an amazing help to them, and just a beautiful showing of God's love to them. So thank you.
I invite you as we sing this last song to bring with you those questions about what is the gift of wholeness that you will give to yourself this week, and then how will that giving of yourself to yourself lead to you giving of yourself, that wholeness, to others and to the world. Children born to chaos, sojourn by stars as we continue our work of ministry today in our congregational meeting, I invite you to bring that gift of wholeness with yourself this week, whatever that means for you. Whether you encounter somebody in retail and they just need you to give them a smile or some patience, whether you encounter somebody at home or at school or at work that just needs you to share that gift of wholeness with another. Connect with your God and know that the wholeness is a gift that you are offered every single day of your life. Go from this place, may the grace of your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God, and may the Holy Spirit fill you, surround you, and walk with you, and bring wholeness to you all the days of your lives. And as I mentioned, you are free to grab food and drink, and we will start the congregational meeting in a few moments once everybody sort of gets settled in. So go ahead and grab